Alright, so I wanted to make a video to talk about Herodotus, book 2, the first part of it. I'm barely into book 2, but there's already so much information being thrown at me that I want to try to recall some of it to help me remember. So in book 2, it seems like we're diving into Egypt, learning about Egypt a bit more. And the way Egypt is introduced is through the death of Cyrus. So Cyrus the Great ends up dying on some campaign after trying to win over the land of this lady in, I don't remember if it was Media or where, I honestly forgot. That's the end of book 1, which I had a hard time with. But he ends up dying, and Cambyses, his son, Cyrus's son, inherits his rule and inherits the Hellenes, or the Ionians that Cyrus ruled over. And Cambyses is planning to invade Egypt with his slaves, basically. So before Herodotus goes into all of that, I think he's giving us a picture of what Egypt looks like at the time, or the history of Egypt as he understands it. Yeah, so how does it start? He starts by naming this king called Psammetichos, Psammetichos, and that guy died around like 610 BC, so a couple decades before Herodotus was born. And he was interested. Herodotus, I think, is just like spitting out random facts at this point, so I don't really know if there's any narrative importance of Psammetichos, but Herodotus tells us that he was interested in figuring out who the first people to walk the earth were. And so to figure that out, he devises this experiment where he takes a newborn baby and gives it to a shepherd, and has the shepherd keep the baby secluded in like a hut or something. Basically secluded from any human interaction, to see what word, whenever the baby decides to speak on its own, what it will say. And the baby ends up saying the word bikos, which is the word for, I think, bread in the Phrygian language. And Phrygia, I'm unsure of if that is an Egyptian word or a Greek word, but it refers to, I think, the land of like Ionia and like the lower part of Western Turkey, modern day Turkey. But like Ionia and Lycia, this is Phrygia here. It's not focusing at all, but you know, that's like Ionia is the coast, so maybe more inland, but that's also like Media, right? And like there's also Greek references to that land. Oh yeah, Caria, I was right, Lycia, Caria. I don't think it's referred to as Phrygia by Greeks at all, so I'm confused about that. So I don't know, I'm assuming that's, I don't know, is that an Egyptian word? I don't know. But so it seems like Psammetichos believes that the Phrygians were the first people on Earth. Yeah. Then he goes on to talk a little bit about like other Egyptian, like interesting things about Egypt, like their calendar. They were the first to divide the year into 12 seasons, which was a better system than the Greek, because the Hellenes attempt to preserve the timing of the seasons by inserting an intercalary month every other year. The Egyptians divide the year into 12 months of 30 days each and add just 5 days each year beyond that number. Thus, their seasons do return at the same periods in the cycle from year to year. But it sounds like the Hellenes are just using a leap year, or no, an intercalary month every other year. I guess that is different than what we have now. Yeah. Next, Herodotus he mentions the first king of Egypt was Min, or Menes, and that the Egyptians were the first to establish the tradition of identifying names for the 12 gods. So I'm just reading from the book. Like, I'm just reading from the book. Like, this is stuff I want to know. But if I close the book, I don't remember anything that I read. This is my issue with Herodotus. This is why it's so frustrating to me. There's just so much. There's just so much to try to remember, and I don't know what's important or what's not. But I guess I'll try. Anyway, then he starts talking about the Nile, and I didn't really know much about the Nile before, other than that it was, you know, one of the places where civilization started. But I learned that the Nile flows kind of opposite to how you would think it flows. It flows from south to north, and it flows into the Mediterranean. I learned what a delta is. So it's like the land mass that's formed by the sediment of the river flowing into the Mediterranean, which is why it bulges from the coastline of Egypt. So I think Egyptian civilization started around the delta and the banks of the Nile. I also learned what the banks means. It's like the land that is on either side of the river. Yeah, and I watched some YouTube videos to learn more about the Nile and try to figure out, I was curious like where the Nile started, where the source of that water is from, and it's kind of complicated, I guess, actually. There's like the Lake Victoria, which is in, oh God, I forgot where Lake Victoria is. Sudan? I don't know. But that lake also has some tributaries, which is another word I just learned. Some other water flowing into it from 2 other small countries. And that's just the White Nile. Then in Ethiopia, there's the Blue Nile, which both of those converge to become the Nile River of Egypt, which is why it's so strong. So yeah, I learned some interesting stuff about the Nile. Herodotus refers to the land to the right of the Nile as Arabia, and to the left of the Nile as Libya, right? Libya. Yeah. He says that there are mountains on either side of it, but when I look at it on Google Maps, it doesn't really seem like it's mountains. It seems more like just desert, but I could just be not, I don't know, like missing something. Anything else of importance about the Nile? I mean, Herodotus starts speculating if the Nile, I'm a little unsure about what he's saying here, but he looks at the Gulf of the Red Sea, or the Erythraean, how do you pronounce it? Erythraean Sea. And he speculates that maybe the land, like the land around the Nile, maybe Egypt was once something like that, because there's seashells on the mountains. So it sounds to me like he's saying that all of Egypt was once submerged underwater. I don't know if that's what he's saying or not, but it sounds like he's speculating that. Yeah. And he talks a bit about like the size of Egypt, like the length of the coastline, the length from city to city. None of that stuff is really important to me. But the names of the cities are good to know. So he talks about Heliopolis. I believe. We're gonna go with that. Which is pretty much at the bottom. If the Nile Delta is a triangle, Heliopolis is right at the bottom. And below that is Memphis, a little bit below that. I just want to make sure I'm getting the name right. Yeah, it is Heliopolis. Then far below that, and what's interesting is that the Egyptians would have actually said these are north of each other because it's upstream on the river, but when you look at a map, it's like going southward. That's why I'm saying below. So below Memphis, like far below that is, I forgot, it is, oh, Thebes. That's right, Thebes, which I had no idea that was in Egypt before. And then a little bit below that is elephantine. So yeah, that's some of what I'm learning in the beginning of book 2, and I'm only like 5 pages in. So this is gonna be this is why it takes me so long to read, and I lose all my motivation. I just get so discouraged by how much there is. But yeah, I've got to get through it. So anyway, that's it.